Do you really believe hard work is enough to succeed in today's world? The question, sharp and defiant, cut through the crisp autumn air. What followed wasn't just a conversation. It was a battle of ideals, where Clint Eastwood's timeless wisdom on work ethics collided with the fiery skepticism of a young activist, leaving everyone questioning what it truly means to build a better future. The scene was set on the sprawling lawn of a prestigious university campus. The golden hues of late afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows over the crowd that had gathered. Students sat cross-legged on the grass, some clutching notebooks, others holding their phones aloft to record the moment. Faculty members stood in small clusters at the edges, their expressions a mix of curiosity and quiet judgment. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and the hum of distant traffic. At the center of it all was Clint Eastwood, standing tall despite his 94 years, his hands resting casually in the pockets of his well-fitted black jacket. Behind him, a simple wooden podium bore the university's crest, but Clint didn't need it. He spoke directly to the crowd, his gravelly voice carrying effortlessly over the murmurs of the audience. "I've been asked to talk about what shaped my life," he began, his tone calm and measured. "And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Nothing worth having comes without hard work. You can't shortcut your way to success. You have to earn it." The crowd listened intently, though a few students exchanged skeptical glances. Clint continued, sharing stories of his early days, working as a bricklayer, digging swimming pools, and taking odd jobs just to make ends meet. "I wasn't born into privilege," he said, his voice steady. "I didn't have a safety net. What I had was a willingness to work hard and a belief that effort and perseverance could take me somewhere. And they did." The audience murmured, some nodding in agreement, others clearly unconvinced. Clint's words carried the weight of experience, but for some in the crowd they felt like echoes of a bygone era. Among them was Sarah, a 21-year-old political science major and a well-known campus activist. Her bright green blazer and determined expression made her stand out against the sea of casual attire. Sarah had been waiting for this moment, her mind already racing with questions she wanted to ask. Sarah had grown up in a working-class family where she had seen her parents juggle multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Her father, a factory worker, often came home exhausted, his hands calloused and his spirit worn. Her mother, a part-time nurse, spent her evenings helping Sarah and her siblings with homework, all while worrying about how to pay the bills. These experiences had shaped Sarah's worldview, fueling her passion for social justice and systemic reform. For Sarah, Clint Eastwood's narrative of hard work and individual effort felt disconnected from the realities she saw around her. She had friends who worked tirelessly, but still couldn't afford tuition, and she had read countless stories of families trapped in cycles of poverty despite their best efforts. To her, the system was broken, and no amount of personal responsibility could fix it. As Clint spoke, Sarah's resolve grew stronger. She stood up, her voice clear and confident as she addressed him. "Mr. Eastwood," she began, "you've built your career on stories of hard work and individual effort. But don't you think that narrative is outdated? The world has changed. People are working harder than ever and still struggling to get ahead. Isn't it time we admit that hard work alone isn't enough?" The crowd fell silent, all eyes on Clint. He paused, his gaze steady, and then responded with the calm authority of a man who had seen it all. "Well, young lady," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of experience, "the world may have changed, but the principles that build character and community haven't. Hard work isn't just about getting ahead. It's about building something, your skills, your resilience, your sense of purpose. Those things don't go out of style." Sarah crossed her arms, her expression unyielding. "With all due respect, Mr. Eastwood," she pressed, "that sounds like a nice story. but it doesn't reflect reality. What about the people who work hard every day and still can't make ends meet? What about the single mothers, the underpaid workers, the students drowning in debt? Are you saying they just aren't working hard enough? Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice firm but calm. No, I'm saying they need more than hard work. They need faith. They need community. They need to believe that their efforts mean something, even when the odds are stacked against them. And they need to stop waiting for someone else to fix their problems. Because let me tell you, no politician, no corporation, no system is ever going to care about your life as much as you do. The crowd erupted into applause, though not everyone joined in. Sarah's expression hardened, her frustration evident. That's easy for you to say, she shot back. You're a millionaire. You've already made it. You don't have to worry about paying bills or putting food on the table. How can you stand there and tell people to just have faith when you've never had to live their struggles? Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice growing firmer. You think I've never struggled? He asked, his tone cutting through the tension like a knife. Let me tell you something, young lady. I grew up during the Great Depression. My family didn't have much, and I had to work for everything I've ever had. I've been broke. I've been rejected. I've been told I wasn't good enough more times than I can count. But I didn't let that stop me. I didn't sit around blaming the system or waiting for someone else to fix my problems. I got to work. The crowd buzzed with energy, the weight of Clint's words sinking in. Sarah, however, wasn't ready to back down. But what about the people who can't just get to work? She asked, her voice rising. What about the people who are stuck in poverty, who don't have the opportunities you had? Are you saying it's their fault? Clint leaned forward slightly, his gaze piercing. No, I'm saying it's their responsibility, he replied, his voice calm but firm. Responsibility doesn't mean it's your fault. It means it's your job to do something about it. Life isn't fair, and it never will be. But you don't get anywhere by sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. You get somewhere by taking ownership of your life and doing the best you can with what you've got. The crowd erupted into applause again, louder this time. Even some of the students who had initially sided with Sarah seemed to be reconsidering their stance. Sarah, however, wasn't ready to give up. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly as she pressed on. But what about hope? She asked, her tone softer now. What about the people who feel like they have nothing left to fight for? What do you say to them? Clint's expression softened, his voice taking on a more reflective tone. I say this, he began, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Hope isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It's not about wishing for things to get better. It's about believing that no matter how hard things get, you have the power to make them better. And that starts with hard work, with faith, and with the belief that your efforts matter. The crowd fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Even Sarah seemed momentarily at a loss for words, her earlier defiance replaced by a quiet introspection. Clint continued, his voice steady and deliberate. I've been where you're talking about, he said. I've been broke. I've been rejected. I've been told I wasn't good enough more times than I can count. But I didn't let that stop me. I didn't sit around blaming the system or waiting for someone else to fix my problems. I got to work. And you know what? It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But it was worth it. The crowd was silent, hanging on his every word. Even Sarah seemed momentarily at a loss for words, her earlier defiance replaced by a quiet introspection. Clint leaned forward slightly, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Hope, he said, his voice steady, isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It's not about wishing for things to get better. It's about believing that no matter how hard things get, you have the power to make them better. And that starts with hard work, with faith, and with the belief that your efforts matter. The crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing across the campus. Even some of the students who had initially sided with Sarah joined in, their skepticism replaced by a newfound respect for the wisdom of the man standing before them. Before we dive into the final part of this unforgettable exchange, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers who value stories that inspire and challenge us to think deeper. Now let's get back to the story. Sarah, her voice quieter now, took a step closer to Clint. "I guess I never thought about it that way," she admitted, her tone reflective. Maybe there's more to it than I realized." Clint offered her a small, reassuring smile. "That's the thing about life," he said. "It has a way of teaching you what you didn't know you needed to learn. And if you're willing to listen, you might just find that the answers you're looking for aren't as far away as you think." The crowd erupted into applause once more, the tension giving way to a sense of unity and inspiration. Clint stepped back, his presence commanding yet humble, as the students and faculty alike rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the university lawn, casting long shadows over the scene. The air was still, as if the world itself was holding its breath for what would come next. Clint Eastwood stood tall, his presence commanding yet calm, while Sarah, the young activist, wrestled with the weight of his words. The crowd, a mix of students, faculty, and onlookers, remained captivated, their attention fixed on the two figures at the center of this philosophical clash. Sarah took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly as she made one last attempt to challenge Clint. "Mr. Eastwood," she began, her tone softer now, "I hear what you're saying about hard work and responsibility. But what about the people who feel like they've done everything they can and still can't get ahead? What do you say to someone who feels like the system has failed them, like they have no way out?" Clint's expression softened, his gaze steady and thoughtful. He took a moment before responding, his gravelly voice carrying a quiet strength that silenced even the faintest whispers in the crowd. "I say this," he began, his tone measured. "Life isn't fair. It never has been, and it never will be. But that doesn't mean you give up. It means you dig deeper. You find strength in your faith, in your family, in your community. You focus on what you can control, and you don't let the things you can't control define you." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in before continuing. "I've been where you're talking about," he said, his voice tinged with emotion. "I've been broke. I've been rejected. I've been told I wasn't good enough more times than I can count. But I didn't let that stop me. I didn't sit around blaming the system or waiting for someone else to fix my problems. I got to work. And you know what? It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But it was worth it." The crowd was silent, hanging on his every word. Even Sarah seemed momentarily at a loss for words, her earlier defiance replaced by a quiet introspection. Clint continued, his voice steady and deliberate. "Hope," he said, his voice steady, "isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It's not about wishing for things to get better. It's about believing that no matter how hard things get, you have the power to make them better. And that starts with hard work, with faith, and with the belief that your efforts matter." The crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing across the campus. Even some of the students who had initially sided with Sarah joined in, their skepticism replaced by a newfound respect for the wisdom of the man standing before them. Sarah, her voice quieter now, took a step closer to Clint. "I guess I never thought about it that way," she admitted, her tone reflective. Maybe maybe there's more to it than I realized." Clint offered her a small, reassuring smile. "That's the thing about life," he said. "It has a way of teaching you what you didn't know you needed to learn. And if you're willing to listen, you might just find that the answers you're looking for aren't as far away as you think." The crowd erupted into applause once more, the tension giving way to a sense of unity and inspiration. Clint stepped back, his presence commanding yet humble, as the students and faculty alike rose to their feet in a standing ovation. As the applause subsided and the crowd began to disperse, Sarah lingered on the lawn, her mind racing with thoughts. She had come to the event prepared to challenge Clint Eastwood, to expose what she believed were outdated ideas about hard work and responsibility. But instead, she found herself questioning her own assumptions. Nearby, a group of students debated the exchange, their voices a mix of admiration and skepticism. "He's got a point," one student said, adjusting his glasses. "Hard work and resilience are important. You can't just blame the system for everything." "Sure," another student replied, her tone sharp. "But he's ignoring the fact that some people don't have the same opportunities. It's not just about hard work. It's about access and fairness." A professor, overhearing the conversation, chimed in. "What we witnessed today was more than a debate. It was a dialogue between two generations, each with their own truths. The challenge is finding a way to bridge those truths and create a future that honors both." Sarah couldn't help but overhear the discussion, and it only deepened her reflection. She thought about Clint's words, about hope, responsibility, and the power of community. She thought about her own experiences, the struggles she had witnessed, and the causes she had fought for. And she wondered if perhaps there was a way to reconcile her ideals with the wisdom of someone who had lived through so much. As Clint made his way off the lawn, he was approached by a middle-aged professor who had been watching the exchange with keen interest. "Mr. Eastwood," the professor said, extending his hand, "thank you for sharing your perspective. It's not often we get to hear from someone with your life experience." Clint shook the professor's hand, his grip firm but warm. "I appreciate that," he said. "But I'm not here to preach. I'm just here to share what I've learned." The professor nodded. "And you've given us all a lot to think about. It's clear that your words resonated with many in the crowd, even if they didn't agree with everything you said." Clint smiled faintly. "That's all I can ask for. We don't have to agree on everything, but we do have to listen to each other. That's how we move forward." As he walked away, Clint couldn't help but reflect on the exchange. He had faced countless challenges in his life, both personal and professional, and he knew that the world was far from perfect. But he also believed in the power of perseverance, in the strength of the human spirit to overcome adversity. And he hoped that in some small way, his words had inspired others to believe in that too. Later that evening, Sarah sat in her dorm room staring at her laptop. The events of the day replayed in her mind, and she felt a mix of emotions, frustration, curiosity, and a newfound sense of humility. She opened a blank document and began to type, her fingers moving hesitantly at first, but gaining confidence as her thoughts took shape. She wrote about the exchange with Clint Eastwood, about the clash of ideals and the lessons she had learned. She wrote about the importance of hard work and responsibility, but also about the need for systemic change. And she wrote about the power of dialogue, about the value of listening to those with different perspectives. When she finished, she read over her words and felt a sense of clarity. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that the path forward required more than just confrontation. It required understanding, collaboration, and a willingness to learn. The exchange between Clint Eastwood and Sarah had left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. It wasn't just a debate about hard work and systemic challenges. It was a reminder of the power of dialogue, of the importance of listening to one another, and of the need to find common ground in a divided world. As the sun set over the university campus, casting the lawn in a warm golden glow, the lessons of the day lingered in the hearts and minds of those who had been there. And for Clint and Sarah, it was a moment that would shape their perspectives and inspire their actions for years to come. What do you think about Clint's perspective? Was he right about hard work and responsibility? Or do you think Sarah had a point about systemic challenges? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep building a better future.